People often hear the word unschooling and hear no parenting, no guidance, no boundaries, and no learning. Now that's not what unschooling looks like for my family or the many unschooling families I know. And I wanted to unpack that today as part of my review of this book by Kerry McDonald. It is Unschooled: Raising Curious and Well-Educated Children Outside of the Conventional Classroom. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Joanne. I am a home educating mum of 3. Welcome to my channel. If you've been following along with this review series, then today we are on the chapter Tech-Enabled Unschooling. However, I recently did a video about screen time and I will link that here. And many of my thoughts in that video were influenced by this chapter. I feel like I was reading this chapter around the time I made that video anyway, not knowing that I was going to go on to make this series. In that video, I talk about how I reduced the limits on my children's screen time. Late November, early December, I decided to ease my children's screen restrictions. Previous to that, I had been restricting screen time by not allowing my children to have screens on the days that their dad was at work. So my husband works long shifts, so he's only out of the house 3 or 4 days a week. So we would have sort of half the week where they couldn't access screens and half the week where they could, although I still limited it on those days that they could by putting in some screen-free blocks. Since allowing my children more autonomy around their screen time, they have still needed my help to regulate. And I feel like that leads us into a topic that I've been meaning to talk about lately anyway, and that is this idea that as parents we either hold on to really strict boundaries and limits and we never loosen those boundaries no matter what else is going on, or we throw out all of our values, all of our expectations, all of our responsibilities as a parent and just let the children do whatever they want. I want to advocate for a middle ground because I truly believe that that is what unschooling is about. I do have some expectations around my children's screens. I do expect that although they are allowed their screens pretty much unrestricted, that they won't watch content that we have talked about that is unsuitable. For my children, we've mainly talked about keeping off of social media, that they will still prioritise time outdoors and the health of their bodies, that they will prioritise face-to-face friendships and family relations by coming off of their screens when a friend comes round or when we are having meals together as a family. Now, that doesn't mean that those are rigid limits, you know, like set in stone. If they have a friend over and that friend comes over and wants to play a game that involves the PlayStation or the iPad, or they want to watch a video together or record a film together on their iPads, that's absolutely no problem. But it's about having these ideas, right, that face-to-face relationships are important. Outdoor time is important. It's important to protect ourselves from the bad stuff that's out there. And although I'm allowing my children more freedom and more autonomy with things like screens and bedtimes and eating and education, I'm still the parent and I am the one that's observing them, that's seeing, are they frustrated here? Are they having a hard time coming off? Have they found something that excites them and I could maybe introduce them to more of that? What are they needing to feel motivated? I don't direct every moment of my children's day, but I do still have a huge responsibility in curating the environment that they are in and in bringing resources into that environment and keeping out things that I think are potentially harmful. And the same applies to education. Now, don't get me wrong, there are children that experience educational neglect. Unfortunately, there are children that experience neglect, whether it's emotional or physical, and they may attend school or may not attend school, and their parents can take on any label they want. But what I think we're talking about here is a disengaged parent. The philosophy of unschooling or self-directed education is not about disengagement. It is about working together with your children. Although unschooling parents will have some ideas around education that are not mainstream. For example, we believe that children are naturally driven to learn, and so we rely on children's curiosity rather than coercion when we are educating them. Now, another issue is that a lot of what unschoolers deem education kind of looks invisible from outside because it involves a lot of projects, a lot of games. It may involve children becoming really immersed in their hobbies or experimenting or watching documentaries or reading books. A lot of self-directed education doesn't look like school, and so when people come from the lens of school is education, then yeah, not a lot of school type activities are going on. But as Kerry is acknowledging in her book, school does not equal education. People were educated before schools were set up. Home educated children become educated outside of the schooling system. And parents of children outside of the schooling system often have to be more engaged with their children and with their interests and with their learning than parents who send their children to school and the school is taking over that job. Now, that's not to downplay the role of parents who have children who go to school. Of course, those parents are supporting their children by helping them get to school on time, by helping them partake in all the activities there, and by supporting them with things like homework when they're at home. But as you would expect, the role of a home educating parent, including an unschooling parent, is going to be more hands-on in terms of a child's education. Unschooling parents should be making use of all the materials and all the resources that are out there. That includes plugging into their local home educating networks and also making sure that they are aware of what's going on in museums that may be nearby, taking their kids to the library regularly, or bringing in books that on different topics that your children may not even know about yet. We have a responsibility, an amazing opportunity to open the world up for our children. And unschooling is not doing nothing. It is doing something very different to the mainstream. Now, that's why on my channel here, I want to show you lots of examples of what that looks like. You can look back at Week in a Life videos, which I will link the playlist for here. And next week, instead of carrying on with this series, I'm going to pause and I'm going to talk about what each of my children are doing for the next academic year. I have a child going into year 7, a child going into year 5, and a child going into year 1. And while with unschooling, you can't really copy and paste what one family is doing and use it for your own family, because that's not the way it works when you're tailoring education to the individual. At least that may give families some idea of starting points, resources they might want to check out. And I'm trying to be intentional about talking through my decision making when I bring resources into my home and the resources that I expect to use over the next school year. If that sort of content sounds like it will be of interest to you, then please remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and please like this video if it's helped you out. I hope to see you in my next video. Until then, take care. Bye.